All right, we are back, and we have a special guest with us today, a multi-talented, multi-hyphenate character in the surfing, skating, filmmaking, and music communities. He's a prolific musician, having gotten his start at Jack Johnson's Brushfire Records, where he released his debut album, Songs We Sing, back in 2006. He's since produced and released multiple records and albums on his own with Danger Bird Records. Though you may know him primarily through his music, he's equally talented on a surfboard, a skateboard, and behind the lens in his filmmaking, having worked with brands like Rourke, YETI, Danner Boots, and Vera Watch's directing, scoring, and producing films. He's toured all over the world with Modest Mouse. Geez, maybe we'll just make the whole pod about that. I've got questions. Ryan Adams, Death Cab for Cutie, and others. His latest film, Explorations of Sight Plus Sound Volume 2, produced in partnership with Adventure.com and Rivian, is releasing on November 30th at the Rivian South Coast Theater. We'll have a link in the description notes. Ladies and gentlemen, we have today Matt Costa. Matt, thank you so much for coming on the lineup.
Thanks for having me. Hi, how's it going?
It's good. You know, when this opportunity came up, I was like, oh my God, I'm a huge fan of Matt Costa. Didn't know like a ton about your career, just really enjoyed your music. I was actually, just before the podcast, harassing Chris Cote as to why I can't watch Burn, which I think the Dane Reynolds segment is scored to your song Behind the Moon. So I'll figure that out after the podcast. But you and I are of a similar age, and we kind of both grew up in Orange County. Are you there today? Where are you talking to me from?
Yeah. I'm in where I'm at. I'm in Laguna Beach. This is where I live. I'm on my porch here at my house.
Good for you. And how long have you been in Laguna Beach for?
For like almost 10 years or so.
Yeah. I grew up in San Juan Capistrano, so I come down there a lot. So Orange County's changed a ton.
Yeah. Okay, so you're close. I originally grew up in like a little bit further north in Cypress and then Huntington, and then I've just kind of worked my way down to the nice beaches down here. So,
it's super nice there, actually. Yeah. I went to Capo Valley, so I was like 2001. I think you were just 1 year older, maybe.
2000, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're right there. I like that. We can
right
just
there.
Talk about all sorts of stuff from the 80s if we wanted to.
That's right. All of our reference points should intersect, whether it's like, music, TV, film. Sometimes, we get these like sponsored pods. They're like, we want you to talk to this 17-year-old phenom. I'm like, can't wait, but there's not going to be a lot for us to connect on necessarily, but yeah, it's all good. For the last few years, you've been working with a bunch of brands and kind of exploring art, not just music or scoring, but filmmaking and directing. And you've produced all the music for some of the WSL short films that we co-produced with YETI this year. Can you talk a little bit about that process and how you got connected and how you kind of approached those projects?
Well, I think originally it came about through the director, Devin Bison, who made the last two years of them, and she's a really talented director, and she had made a film a number of years back that she had asked me to write some music for. So that's when our creative relationship started, and so then she had come to me for the series that we first did together with WSL and YETI, and was like, okay, I have this idea, and so then she asked me to drum up some ideas, and how that normally goes is that there's like a lot of times I'll just like throw a couple ideas at the wall, like whether they're certain styles. So maybe one's more organic, maybe one's more ethereal, maybe one's more electronic or something, and then see how it feels, and then from there, then we kind of start building like a sonic idea. And then within that, then we work together on each individual episode. And she's got a really clear vision. So the fun thing about doing stuff with her or any director really is that they become sort of like a producer. And I'm here just with all these, like all my tools and ideas and things. But they really like, and her specifically, really dwindle it down into being like, this one part feels to whatever, however they describe it. Sometimes it's in musical terms, and sometimes it's just in colors or feelings or something. So I have to decipher what that means, and then go, okay, I'll make it less blue or something, whatever that is.
You always hear like all these kind of in-depth behind the music podcasts if it involves someone like Rick Ross, and I'm always fascinated with the shared language that the artists and the producers and the other kind of creators end up using, because sometimes it's like impenetrable for someone to understand it just hearing it, where it's like, yeah, these drums need to sound more purple, and like the drummer's like, totally know what you mean, and 99.9% of us are like, I won't know what to do with that. But I guess when you're working in that shared space of creativity, it probably makes a lot of sense if you can find a common language. I'm curious, when you're working on projects like this with other creators like Devin, does your songwriting process or music writing process, is it differ a lot from when you're maybe setting out to make like a full-length album of just music for you to release, or is it pretty similar?
It's very different, actually. I mean, I think the one similarity is feeling, that's the thing that that if I don't feel something in whatever I'm doing, there's a moment when it links up, when I'm writing a song for myself and there's like whether it's a mental image and the sound that creates a feeling, but when I'm working to film, then there's a visual image that the director has created and pulled together, and then what I'm doing. And then a lot of times I'll be working with it and I won't feel anything. And so I don't really, I don't stop on it until an idea, until I'm like, okay, there's a feeling, whether it's a good feeling or a bad feeling, but it's alluding to something. And then I chase that. But I think there's a lot of, and then it gets into more technical stuff too.
Sure.
But it happens a lot quicker. It happens quick. When I'm doing stuff for this stuff, it's like within a couple hours, I'll sit down and do it. Sometimes writing a song for for my own record can take years or something, because there'll be an idea or something that comes to me, and I just sometimes have to let that simmer. And with these projects, there's not really time to let it simmer. I just kind of really just hyper focus on it and get in the zone. So
guardrails are a little closer on that kind of work, I'd imagine. With that process of seeking out a feeling, have you had any experiences where it's like, oh, there are risks to this kind of process and this didn't quite work out, or maybe if it didn't, like, are there risks where it's like, oh, I've over rotated into this part of the process, or have you found it to be pretty bulletproof for you so far?
I mean, sometimes there's an idea that just doesn't work at all. But I think those are the best ideas, because if someone is describing something, like you were saying, or we were saying earlier, however it is, sometimes it's hard to describe a feeling or something. And maybe there's a reference point, or maybe there's, you can say, I have this idea, and you try something and it doesn't land at all. Well, for me, that's happened several times. But at the same time, that also just like, I know exactly what not to do at that point. And that's a lot easier to navigate too, because then I'm like, it's easier when you have an example of what not to do, when you think you're getting somewhere, and then you can, it starts to define it a little bit more. There's a little bug flying over me right now. Yeah. So occasionally that happens. And that's why I was saying too, sometimes I'll throw out an idea, and maybe sometimes it's something I already have too. I'll be like, okay, this is something I've worked on, and I'll be like, how does this vibe work? And if you like that, then we can write something original that actually moves with the sequence. And sometimes I won't have anything that I think does, so I'll try something, and then sometimes it lands, and then sometimes it doesn't, and I go, all right, well, now I know exactly what you need. So
Right.
Yeah.
It's such a good point on like, oh, well, if something doesn't work out, that's not a loss. It's just like a lesson. I've got 10-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, and like we're going through that now, whether it's with like school or sports, and like they both hold themselves to kind of a high standard, and they're paralyzed at the idea that something's not going to work. And I'm like, it's actually like an important thing. You don't want to have perfect attendance or perfect scores all the time. Like, you need to understand that. And we landed on there's this figure from feudal or from samurai history named Kojiro Sasaki, and the mythology behind him. He was a swordsman, excuse me. and he was known as history's greatest loser because he always fought people that were way better than him. But then he learned so much, he would get to that level and he wouldn't sit there and win. He'd find the next person that was better and became, this master swordsman through that approach. And it kind of worked with my kids. But just hearing you talk about it, like it's tracking for me, right? Because if things don't work out, it's not a failure. It's a good thing to take into the next project.
Totally. And it's like for me, especially working with stuff, it's always like I always try to write beyond myself. So, I mean, there's things that I can just do that I've kind of done before. Someone's like, I want to sound exactly like this. And I know you have this. I can do that. But it's the most exciting when we get to develop a new sound together, at least new for me. I mean, I don't know how many. I mean, there's so many genres that have been explored and so many sounds and so many composers. But I think that when we get to do something like that and I push myself, and that's the most rewarding part, because then you're actually making something that's art.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
So that's the best stuff. Yeah.
You've got a new film. We mentioned it. It's Explorations, the Sight Plus Sound Volume 2. It's made in collaboration with Adventure.com and Rivian. It's going to be releasing November 30th at the Rivian South Coast Theater in Laguna Beach, right where you're at. You've described it as a quote, an ode to California indigenous lands and people. Can you talk to us about this film, where the concept came from, and what your experience has been like making it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, Explorations of Sight and Sound. This will be the second episode, second volume, and the first one I did with Rourke, and we were in Sardinia, and so I was there with Jamie Thomas and Jeff Johnson and Drew Smith, a bunch of really talented people, Harrison Roach as well, surfing. There wasn't much swell out there, but they found a little bit. And then for this one, I've always been aware and fascinated by the indigenous people that have been on the land here, long before I came here, and long before anyone that I'd known has been here. I know I was originally turned on to it because I was walking in this like open greenbelt area by my parents' house in Huntington, and I saw all these. It's by Mother's Market and the Newland House there, which is it's like 100-year-old house. But the bluff that goes down to the Santa Ana riverbed there were all these shells on it. And I'd walk there and see them and think like, oh, it must have been underwater or something. And I went into the studio one day, and the guy, my friend Ted, who was playing keys with me at the time, he's a bit older than me. He was an archaeologist and was like working when they would develop places to make sure they weren't building on anything that was important or historical or sacred. So when I told him about that, he was like, "Oh yeah, those are the remains of the native peoples going down into the Santa Ana riverbed and just like eating the shellfish and then disposing of it there on the bluff." So that's remnants of them being there. And then I was like, wow, that's pretty fascinating. He started telling me all these other stories too about the Bolsa Chica wetlands and all these things that he uncovered with a guide and these things, and that they were preserving the land for that reason and weren't building on it. So that was when I was young, when I was like 20, making my first record, and so I've always been it's always been in my mind. And in the last year, I got married, and my wife is from Australia.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and so they have a lot better practice there of acknowledging the indigenous peoples in Australia. So when she came here, she was really interested to know, and I was like, well, I know a little bit. And I had also arranged to have Adelia Sandoval from the Ashaman Nation come do a land acknowledgement at our first explorations. And so all that was there. That was the groundwork for it. And she got invited to go to a powwow up in Redding, California. And so we took it upon ourselves. And like, why don't we make the next explorations centered around California indigenous people? So that was the catalyst for it, this powwow. And doing that, we learned a lot more. That that the powwow isn't actually even native to California, and the drums that they would use, those they have these ceremonies to bring in all these nations and welcome everyone and be communal.
Mm.
But kind of what the original native peoples of this land, like the Ashamen, like Adelia, were just singing songs and hitting reeds and small stumps in the ground, and it was very like um, it was there were more divided boundaries too, so there wasn't as much turbulence between tribes. They had set boundaries, and it was very organized, and it was very different than the rest of the nation that was more nomadic, and also they were always kind of chasing a lot bigger livestock and things. So these are some of the things that I'd learned, and so that's what we did. We interviewed Adelia down here with the Ashaman Nation. We stopped in Owens Valley, which is originally Payahunadu, which was a big water resource coming down from the Sierras, and then all the way up into Redding, which is which there's a number of tribes up there near Lassen National Park, and also in Shasta County and things too. So we kind of we just kind of explore a lot of that. The land that we like cover is something that we basically were really inspired by on our trip, and I documented it all on 16 millimeter. And she's a journalist, so Taylor is her name. So she was doing a piece on it, a journalistic piece, and I was making music, making music also in these locations, like in caves and like up against these rocks. And I had these field recording devices, and we interviewed a lot of these people from the different areas, and are helping them get the word out there for their own name acknowledgement and land acknowledgement and water recognition, that kind of stuff. I know it's very, hopefully that all made sense and tied together. But
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I just love the idea of just exposure to communities like that too. I think, geez, I mean, I think we've all experienced society over the last 10, 20 years with the information age, and everything moves so fast and everyone gets like isolated, and like there's this loss of kind of just exposure to different lives and different ways of living and different communities. We had Chris Malloy on a couple weeks ago, and he was telling us a story about, when he travels and when he camps, everyone often people that he'd go with would look at him like really odd, because they'd get to kind of some headland or some river, and he'd start thinking, okay, like, well, where would the indigenous people set up camp? Like, where is the wind coming from? Like, where is there fresh water? Where are all these things? And he'd been doing it for like 20, 30 years. And he goes, more often than not, I pride myself on finding camping locations and then finding evidence of indigenous people from hundreds of years ago. And he's like, I just started doing it because my dad always would do it. Like, every time we'd go camping, he'd be like, all right, like, a little bit about indigenous culture and communities, like, they figured it out in a lot of ways. And so I just love the idea that Explorations of Sight and Sound Volume 2 focuses in on that, because I think kind of breaking the siloing is essential for people as well.
thanks. Yeah, I mean, I definitely am learning a lot, and still, learned a lot, and I'm learning a lot in the process. And I think that there was there's a lot to uncover. But mostly, I think the most fascinating thing and the most important thing is the connection to land. When you really start to think about that, then you start to acknowledge that, then you become aware of how much we've just like built around ourselves, today, things that can inhibit our own connection to understanding the water and the way that rivers are flowing, or the way that the wind is blowing, and all these things that and the way that yeah, just the way that we live with the land. And you're right, people figured it out a long, long time ago, and and a lot of the answers are there for what will make the future sustainable. So, and I think also too, before traveling and doing more projects other places, really far away places, I think understanding what needs to happen right in my own backyard, and that story is the most important, because I think if every person did that within their own place, and shared that story, as a lot of people do, but if people continue to do that, then that's the way it could be the most impactful to start. So that's why we did that.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. The film is called Explorations of Sight and Sound Volume 2. We're going to put the release information in the show notes, and you can visit Matt Costa's Instagram at Matt Costa Music and click on the link in his bio, or visit mattcosta.com, or just check out this episode's show note description for tickets. You're not going to want to miss it. We're going to take a quick break to get a word in from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back. This is the Lineup Podcast. I'm Dave Prodan here with Matt Costa. Matt, we touched on it a little bit. You're in Laguna Beach today. You've been there for 10 years, but grew up in Orange County. But tell us what that was like. Where specifically did you grow up? What was family life like? Brothers, sisters? What did mom and dad do? How'd you get your start?
So I'm originally from Cypress, California. That's where I was originally. That was my first house that I grew up in. And my dad, he worked at LAX. He worked for Delta Airlines, and he did a lot of tech. And my mom was a travel agent, so they were both in the travel industry. And so originally too, as a kid, I always thought like I would just go work in the airport. Like I would be like work on computers and tech like my dad. That's where that was sort of my plan. Aside from being like a pro baseball player or something when I was little. Then
Sandlot. We saw Sandlot. We're like, that looks pretty good.
Forever. Yeah, totally. But that was what I thought. And then I started skateboarding when I was like 10 years old, and then that kind of just all of a sudden changed everything. I was just doing that. Like I went to more school, like breaking into schools and skateboarding
Right.
than I did my own school. And so, yeah, I was really passionate about that. And I did that for like until I was 19. And when I was 19, then I shattered my leg really bad, had a really bad injury and like compound fracture. And I thought I would only be out for like a month or two, but it ended up being about 2 years. And so I was in a wheelchair, and then I was like going to go to, I went to school to get insurance. I was like, I got to go to OCC. And so I went to OCC and then took some courses there and was going to get my general education and then go, like I said, I was like, well, I guess I'll just go work for my dad at the airport if I can do that. I didn't know. But during that time I had like got an acoustic guitar and I started writing some songs. I'd played music throughout my youth, like trumpet and piano and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. So. But you never really the guitar until later on.
I had an electric guitar. Right. I had an electric guitar that I got, and then I traded it to a pro skateboarder for a pair of shoes and a skateboard, which only lasted me about like a month, and then I didn't have an instrument anymore. So I would always just like be the guy, be like, go to someone's house and then play their guitar. I knew a couple, the beginnings to like Smashing Pumpkins and Nirvana and stuff like that. But I got an acoustic guitar when I broke my leg, and then I just kind of I was laid up, so I just, and everything kind of slowed down. I was always really active outside. But then when I started to slow down a little bit, I started paying attention to more than just the intros to songs, learning just because I'd learn the intro and be like, cool, I got it. And then when I had more time with it, I was like, well, what's this, what's the whole thing about? And then I started thinking, okay, well, it's got a beginning, a middle, another beginning part, another middle, then there's this other weird part that happens, and then something at the end. I didn't even know chorus, verse, bridge, all that stuff. I was just like trying to piece it together. So I wrote songs in that way, and I had a little 4-track recorder. I couldn't even play a song like all the way through, but I would record 30 seconds of it, and then I'd work it up. I'd get 30 seconds of an idea, work for a half an hour at it, record it, and then I would let that play, and then on the next track, then when that 30 seconds was done, I would continue on and be like, okay, now this is the next part. And then I would piece together songs like that until I had about 3 minutes of a song. I was like, yeah, a song is like 3 minutes long, so there's a song. It's 3 minutes long. That's my first song, So I started doing that, and then I would learn those songs. So I'd be like, okay, now I've got this thing. Now I've got a framework, and I'll learn that. And so that's kind of what I did as far as like when I first started writing songs, and that's how I got into it.
Right. So this is like late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
You're going to OCC, you're healing your leg, you're beginning to write songs. Were there any moments that felt like, oh, like professional musician might be like or songwriter or like creator, like this might be my career path? Was it getting noticed? Was it meeting someone? Was there like a break moment for you, I guess is the question.
Well, I never thought that. I never
Right.
thought being a musician was even a possibility. I thought being a skateboarder was a possibility because I was like, you get the like VHS and you're like, these guys are like, they weren't like, very rarely were they on TV. You had like X Games or something, but it was sort of like, that seemed more like, all right. So it was more like down home, you're like, okay,
Right.
I can do this. And those are my goals, especially there was a short period of time too when I lived in Florida when I was in junior high school, and there was like 3 kids that skateboarded at the school. So I mean my like expectations for it was more just to be like good and then get free skateboards. And then I was like, if I can do that, when I'm 27, maybe I won't even be alive. I was like, I didn't even think that far ahead. I was like, if you're, 30, you're like over the hill. So, I really wasn't thinking that far ahead. But then when I started playing music, I didn't know anyone who like really played music at all. And then especially anyone who had like done it professionally or was like, they were all like, it would all seem like celebrities and really far out of reach.
Right.
There was like
Yeah.
CDs and radio, all that stuff. Like I didn't know anyone who had made it, made a record, and I didn't know anyone who was in Rolling Stone magazine, and I didn't know anyone who was on TV. So I was like, there's no way. But gradually, like, I just was like, well, I just thought of it like making little skate videos. I was like, well, I can take my 4-track and make this CD, and then I'd give it out to some people and be like, well, that's the same thing. I was like, there it is. I made a CD. And so people started hearing that, and then we're like, oh, I like this, like,
Yeah.
will you play, can you play that one? And I was like, maybe I can play it. So
Yeah. I can get you 30 seconds for sure. Yeah.
Eventually I could get him down, and I learned a couple covers and stuff, and I would sit with my friends like at their house and stuff, and they'd request the songs, but you want to hear that one? Okay, well, I'll try my best, So we'd do that, and I'd make up songs on the spot, and I'd do some covers, and that was kind of the beginning of it for me. It became like my first record. That idea was the songs we sing, because it was just songs that like we'd sit around and that we'd sing, when the day was done, when some of them were still skateboarding. So they'd come in from a long day of that, and we'd all meet together at night. And those were the songs that we would sing.
You have, I mean, I'm a Luddite when it comes to music, but I know what I know. And to me, you always had a pretty distinctive sound that's kind of like it evolves and it stretches, but there's this consistent kind of like, I'm going to fuck it up for sure, but like folksy like rhythm that's like a little more like I don't know, the Johnny Cash kind of like up pace kind of stuff. And at the time, I feel like, especially in like skate culture, surf culture, it was a lot of like early pop punk that we didn't know as pop punk at the time. We're like, yeah, these guys are the same as Fugazi, but they weren't.
There's
like
no one like Fugazi.
Exactly, right. We're like, yeah, this is our Minor Threat. They're on MTV. Or like hip hop, and kind of that distinct sound that you have. It does kind of ping off some Jack Johnson stuff, but it is its own thing. Like, who were your kind of musical influences when you were starting out?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I liked all those bands too growing up. You know, I like Fugazi and Minor Threat, and a lot of hip hop and stuff too. And let's see, a lot of classic rock stuff and a lot of indie music. Mostly just from skate videos and stuff,
right?
From surf and skate videos and things. It was like that was where I got my like musical influence from. I don't even think I liked, when I would hear a song that was on whatever, like even if it was on the classic rock station or something my dad was playing, I'd be like, oh, that song's in this video. Okay, that's I love that.
Those are all the reference points. Yeah.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden, then I was like, then I talked to my uncle who had a bunch of records and stuff, and I told him that he was like saw that I like some older music. That's what he could relate to me on. He's like, oh, you like that? He's like, well, you'd like this, and he'd made me all these sort of mixed CDs and things.
Oh, cool.
And it had all sorts of stuff on there. There was like Django Reinhardt, and then there was a bunch of stuff from the, like Jackie Wilson, and then Bob Dylan stuff, and then there's like Steely Dan, and then what else was on there? I mean, there was hundreds of stuff, and it went on. But I just would like, and everyone, and a lot of it too, some different British influence stuff. Like he was like, oh, this is Sandy Denny. She's from Fairport Convention, and she's the only guest singer to ever sing on a Led Zeppelin song, stuff like that. So then he just made this whole like hundreds of songs for me to listen to, and I would just listen to them, and the ones that stuck out to me, I would dig a little deeper. And at the same time too, then I started getting into like, I always wanted to know where it came from. So I'd be like, where does this sound even originate from? So then that got me into more roots music and things. So I'd be like, okay, well, that's from the blues, and this is from the Appalachians, and then the Appalachian music's from, old British ballads, and then every time I've like explored music, I've always been like, okay, well, where does that rhythm come from? Where does that thing come from? And it just led me down this path of discovery.
Yeah.
At the time, I only had acoustic guitar. I could really only play acoustic guitar. So I learned to fingerpick because that was the closest thing to a full band that I could do. The thumb could be the bass, the high fingers or my other fingers could be the melody, and then together you had rhythm and like your own little band in your hand there.
Yeah. We mentioned Jack Johnson. You got your start on Brushfire Records with that debut album you mentioned, Songs We Sing. And Jack was kind of another one of those figures. I think he's older than you and I, but I went to UCSB, and it was like, oh my God, this guy went to UCSB. I remember seeing him at the Coach House in San Juan, like when he was first starting out. Liked his movies that he made with, Chris and the Moonshine Conspiracy. And we were kind of like, oh, that's cool. We got this guy that's like playing nice songs like in the surfing world. And then all of a sudden he's on the radio, and then all of a sudden there's an MTV movie, and it's like, you're like, holy crap, this guy is like huge. No one, I mean, I'm sure people saw it coming. I think it was all a bit of a shock for us, but how did you intersect with Jack? Like, what was the first meeting like, and what was that experience like releasing Songs We Sing on Brushfire?
Yeah, well, at the time when I first started recording my music, I told you I was doing those little demo CDs, and I made a number of those, and actually one of them fell into the hands of a guy named Tom Dumont. And so he called me up and was like, yeah, I'd met him briefly, and he was like, if you want to come record some of these songs proper, I have a home studio and I've got some time that we can do some recordings. And I was like, he's like, do you have any more? And I was like, yeah, I got some more. I had like a handful more. So then
I got 30 seconds of this one. I got 30 seconds of that one.
Yeah, I got a couple 30 seconds here and there. At that point, I could play through. You know,
Sure,
I
yeah,
worked
yeah,
hard
yeah.
enough to learn them. So, um, but I still took now I took the same approach except I took it further. So then, you know, I started recording. I had a song and I recorded it with him. And then every time I'd go back there, I was like, well, we're recording and I got to have a new song. So then
Mm,
every time I went back, I had a new song ready. So I wrote a new song before every week I'd go there. And, you know, songs, when you do them, when you record them and you all add all these layers, you know, it takes more than one day. So every time I'd go back, I'd have a new song, but we were still working on the older song.
right.
And with that momentum, then I, you know, ended up writing a lot more. And it turned out, which I didn't know when I had first met him, but when I got to know him very quickly, that I learned that he was from the band No Doubt and he was a guitar player in them. And so he had all this experience as far as like songwriting and recording and touring and playing live. And so he really took me under his wing and was like, you know, this, you know, he didn't tell me what to do, but he was also like, if my song needed like a better chorus, he'd be like, all right, why don't you just go sit in the room there for like an hour? We're not going to record. He's like, just think about that chorus and see if you can make it better. And so, so we do stuff like that. And then, he just makes sure that I like, you know, had a cable for my guitar and stuff to plug it in. He'd be like, you might want to be able to plug that thing in. So, stuff like that. Eventually the recordings that we did, they weren't even released yet, but Jack and Emmett Malloy had heard those, and they wanted to use it in in some of their films. And so I'd known of Jack's stuff because he was just getting going, but I was also really familiar with Ben Harper.
Mm.
So I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, that'd be rad. I'd be stoked to do that. And then they invited me on a tour, and so I was like, sweet. I'd done some shows. I'd been gigging around LA and done, you know, been. It was about 2 year period between the time I was talking about like breaking my. It happened quick, but between when I broke my leg and then between when this started to happen, but I started playing a lot and doing a lot of live stuff, and so I'd played some gigs at like the House of Blues and stuff, and done things like that, opened for bands that I liked, like Built to Spill and stuff like that, which I was just a kid with an acoustic guitar. I was like, Built to Spill is
Right.
like gods, you know?
Yeah.
So, so anyways, I was like, yeah, that'd be great to go on a tour. So we do a tour. And like, little do I know, I was like, oh yeah, I've done House of Blues shows before. I can do that stage. And we show up and they're like these 15,000 seat places because he was putting out his record, In Between Dreams.
Right.
And so all of a sudden now we're on these like massive stages. And you know, he's inviting me out to sing with him and things. And, so I just had to like, you know, I just had to do it. I was like, I got to get out there in front of these people. I was a bit nervous. Yeah. The first couple times, but everyone around there was like really, really calm energy and like really supportive and also super down home. So it was really comfortable.
Yeah. You know, they're obviously like the surfing world and the surf industry and the music world and the music industry are different in so many ways, but there are a lot of parallels just to like touring life, you know, whether you're a surfer on tour or a musician on tour or like you know, a roadie or a guitar tech on tour or, you know, a judge or a media person on tour. Like it is a unique, way to live your life, right? In a lot of ways. And I'm curious, you know, how you dealt with that when you started touring, if it was disruptive or if it was just exciting or if it was like that's all you knew. And you know, now that we're both a little bit older, if you reflect back and if you've adjusted anything, just in the way you kind of balance out like tour life and home life, because I've struggled with it in the past. I'm just curious if
Yeah.
you've had any of that either.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to, it took me a while to understand what was happening
Hmm.
as far as like my own acclimation to routine.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the main thing, you know, and it can happen in varying degrees. You know, if you go out for like 2 weeks or a month or something, it takes you like the first week you're like, okay, yeah, cool. This is new. This is exciting. Then the second week you're like, oh, okay, well, like now I actually just gotta like get into a groove, and by the third and fourth week, you're like in a groove, and then you got to go back home, and then you got to readjust to that, which can be challenging, and then you have all this stimulation, and then you have to go back into normal life and go, stock up on groceries, and then
Yeah,
go
right.
see your family and friends and stuff, and then kind of all those things that you basically were you you were away from, then you have to plug back into just like kind of quick, and it can be challenging, and especially if you do that over like 256 days a year,
Sure.
uh, that can be a lot. Um, and so I think I don't tour that much now. Like I'd rather, you know, I think I like being at home. And for me too, I think it's interesting when I first started doing shows again. Like I said earlier, like playing the songs through, like I was like, I'd learn 30 seconds, and now it's like, I play songs through and do all that. But, uh, it was more, it never really, I was never really drawn to the idea of originally performing live. For me, the idea was just creating and writing. I was like, I'm going to make this thing, and I want it to take you somewhere. Just put it on put it in your headphones, put it on your speakers, and I want to make you feel something and take you somewhere. And then when all of a sudden you do that, then you have to do this whole other thing where you have to become a performer and do that every night and take everyone there every night in person, and then also like travel around and do all these things, be different places, and then also kind of live that life. um, it can be a lot, and it can be something that I always thought was very separate from the actual creation of the songs,
Right.
until I found out that I was like, then you just have to like every night, embody that, and then you become sort of, it's different than just the song being perfected in the studio. Every night becomes different and becomes a feeling,
Mm.
and whether or not you play it perfect or not, it's like a mode that you get in, a state of mind that takes everyone there, takes yourself there, takes your band there, and then that becomes the goal. And once I found I became like one or at peace with that,
Right.
then the idea of touring and playing live became something that was more exciting.
That's really interesting because I'd imagine that I'm going to generalize, but like the psychology and identity of someone that's a creative and a songwriter isn't always exactly the same as like an extroverted performer.
Yeah.
And I think it's happened a lot. You hear it all the time. Like, and sometimes, you know, performers and entertainers kind of give like identity to these alter egos that are, this is my stage name, or and it sounds like you went through, not maybe not as extreme a process, but kind of going like, okay, there is a gear shift here that like I don't necessarily need to bring that extroverted performer that's on stage into my day-to-day life necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's totally. I mean, I always have just yeah, like I said, that stuff it's always been like a strange side effect to the process. I'm always
Right.
like, okay, and I do enjoy it. It's cool to get up there, and I think especially now it's the most rewarding because as far as doing the film stuff projected behind, I didn't mention it earlier, but in the explorations, I'm like performing the score live and the
That's
film is
so cool.
projected
Yeah.
behind me, and that's the most rewarding because it's like the closest I can get to like hitting all the senses.
Mm.
And so I feel like that's the most rewarding, and especially where I'm at now, having going out and had these experiences where I'm shooting the film of it, having a life experience, then taking pieces of that recording, implementing it into the final product of the film, and then also writing music that is inspired by it. Those are the things that like a song comes from life experience and films come from life experience. And so then when I'm there in person doing it now, it's all this life experience and all this energy of the band that I have with me. And therefore it feels like, all the work's done. I just got to get up there and just like get in the zone. And that's the most satisfying thing.
Yeah. We mentioned some of the acts that you have toured with, Ryan Adams, Death Cab for Cutie. I could be here all day asking you questions, but as a very long time, almost lifelong Modest Mouse fan, whose albums have had profound effect on me, and my ongoing curiosity with someone like Isaac Brock.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the experience was like touring and playing music with them?
Oh yeah. Well, I will say I'm gonna plug my friend right now because my friend uh, Leo and Michael, they have just started a series, and it's not out yet, but they started a series, and the first one focuses on Isaac from Modest Mouse,
Oh,
and
I like this.
specifically his contributions to skate videos. So they sat him down, and they were like, "Will you play this song that's in this video?" He plays it, and then they show him the like video and make him like have a real time response to what's happening. Be like, "What do you think? What do you think when you watch this?" So he's talking about the rails being curved and Tony Hawk skating and all this stuff. And so he's just like his responses are so, he didn't even know some of the songs were in these skate videos, and he's like, "What's the point of that rail?" He's like, "It had to be built for skating." So it's a cool insight, and it walks through his studio and all that stuff too. So that's going to be coming out soon, and if you're a fan of that, that's pretty in depth.
Awesome. Yeah.
Um, but I will say for me, it was cool because like similar enough, I got turned on to that stuff through skate videos too. So I was like, when Isaac had he had gotten a hold of me and he had said that I thought it was a joke. He was like, "Oh, I like this I like this record that you did. I like this song. It was my first record." And I was like, I didn't believe it. I was like, "Really?" I was like, "What do you like about it?" I don't know. I was always surprised when people like my music. Um, Especially people that I really respect and I feel like sometimes do stuff a lot harder than I do, like
Mm.
more intense. I'm like, "You like this finger picking song where I'm singing kind of pretty?" I was like, it really kind of catches me off guard.
This is not like a teeth like God's shoe sign, so to
Yeah,
speak, Isaac.
no,
Like,
because I wish I wrote songs like
right,
that.
right,
I was like,
right.
man, if I could, I tried. I just did, I don't know. I just did what I could do. So, that he liked it. I was like, wow, okay. I really wish I could write, you know, songs like you. But anyway, so I got to know him, and I went to his place up in Portland a couple times, and we hung out there, and ended up touring together. And I'd jump up on stage a couple times and play some shakers and things. And
Big ensemble, that group too. Like it's the few times
yeah,
I've seen them, I'm like, this is a lot of folks.
yeah. That's why I thought they needed some more shakers on stage.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was like, you just need some shakers. Um, but yeah, I mean, I have some fun stories. I mean, there's a lot of taxidermy in his house that when I first went there,
Oh wow.
which I was, I was like fascinated by. I was like, "Where'd you get all this taxidermy from?" And I do remember. Let's see, what else? I'm trying to think. I mean, um, I do remember one time he had this he had a Price is Right microphone. Those like the
Yeah,
long
yeah,
microphones with the small mic at the end.
yeah. Right.
And we'd come back from it was a show in his hometown. And so we came back, and I think I was staying the night at his house, but there was the whole band came back, and there was people over, and he had the studio in his top loft. And so someone starts playing the drums and someone starts playing the guitar. And I don't think the instruments were tuned, so he like came up because he was like, "What is that noise?" He's like, "You got to tune that guitar to this." And so people tune the guitars, and then once it starts to sound, sounds musical ish, it was like very, very raucous. There were two drummers going, and there was a couple of guitars. Some people were banging on stuff. He had his Price's mic microphone, and he taped it to himself. And then he started like, for like a half of an hour, he was just like in it. You know, he was just like singing with this microphone taped to himself, and then he grabbed a guitar, played it really frantically for about 5 minutes, and then just started shoving it through the roof of his house, like putting a hole in the drywall was falling on him. Um, and I was like, wow, this this is. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening right now. But like, you know, everyone's just still in it. You know, everyone's still going. And then he turns to me and he's like, "Oh, I'm just building a skylight there anyway." And then he hands me the microphone, and the microphone has got like voltage going through it. So the second it touches me, it just like gives me an electric shock. So the whole time he had this microphone just taped to him, and I I've always admired that and always like aspired to be feeling it that hard, which I don't know if I can ever do.
It's a great story. I thought I was going to finish with like, and that's how we wrote Cowboy Dan. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm certain that became one of the songs on the future records.
Right, yeah,
but
right.
at the time, I think I couldn't decipher it. You know, it was still being dwindled down.
Fair enough. We're going to take one more quick break, and when we come back, we will finish up with Matt Costa. All right, we're back. This is the Lineup Pod. I'm Dave Prodan here with Matt Costa. You know, Matt, earlier on, you had a comment about, you know, when I was 20 and I was, 19, 20, I was a professional skater, and I didn't think I was going to live until, 27 kind of thing. And it's funny because this has come up for me quite a lot recently. I was somewhere like a soccer tournament with my daughter, and her coach was like, "I'll bet, 20-year-old Dave never imagined that you'd be doing this." And I'm like, 20-year-old Dave didn't think he was going to live past 30. Like, and it's this weird thing, I think, with human beings where, like, if you look at the last like 300 years, the average lifespan's extended, 50%, 100%, 200% in America. And it's like, I do think a lot of us are programmed, especially when we're young, where it's like, I can't see past 30 because historically we don't live past 30, but now we do. And there's kind of all this like, I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm still figuring it out. It's a weird space that we find ourselves physically. Long preamble to ask, like, if your approach to life and the longevity of it's changed in terms of like, oh yeah, no, I can kind of see further down the road than I ever did, or if it's still, no, I just try to be in the present and we'll see what tomorrow brings.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I will say I don't know if it's the healthiest way to look at it. I mean, I'm certain there are many people who, when they're young, go to have their college set out, what job
Right.
they're going to get, where they're going to, they already have their retirement set up and stuff like that. I didn't have that. And it just wasn't a priority to me. If it was, I think I'd be in a completely different place. I'd be a different human. But I do think that being present with everything is when you find the magic moments, and is the thing that where the best creative ideas come from, the most emotional, impactful feelings come from, all those things. And so, I definitely, I don't even think it's more my default mode to be that way. I don't have to think to be that way. I do have to remind myself sometimes when I feel anxiety and stress to actually be more present, and to not stress out about the things that I find that joy in, and that those moments of connectedness. But I also feel that now, I feel like I'm married now to my wife Taylor, and I feel we want to have a family and things like that. So I feel like it's been long enough that I didn't have any kids. So I don't think there's going to be one in the next couple days or anything. But that's something that we're looking forward to. And I feel like some people have different feelings about bringing new kids into the world, but I feel like that I think that getting as many good people out there as possible and giving our best shot to do that is a thing that the world needs. So I love her and I think she's amazing. So to have a child with her would be would be something to look forward to, and that means I got to be around for a long time. So so that's how that answer goes.
That's a great answer. Well, since we're sitting in the present and prior future goal notwithstanding, what does the rest of kind of 2024 look like for you? And is there anything, I guess, career-wise on the horizon for 2025? We obviously have Explorations of Sights and Sound Volume 2 that premieres on the 30th, which is in a few days in Laguna Beach. But
Yeah.
what's after that for Matt Costa?
Well, there's gonna be more of those. I'm gonna be traveling around. I gotta, I don't have that. I don't have it necessarily planned yet as far as what those are gonna be. They have to, those have to come about naturally. But there'll be more of that. I know that planning on doing the. I was just talking with Devin. We're talking about doing the next WSL series here. So that's I'm gonna work on some of those. She's out. I think she's got some new ideas for me, new sounds for me to try. And I think that let me think of it. 2025. What am I gonna do in 2025? I'm probably gonna hit the road a little bit too. Actually, I do want to take Explorations of Sight and Sound on a bit of a at least a couple shows here and there, like in New York and in the corners, New York, Pacific Northwest, somewhere maybe in Florida or something. Do some gigs around that.
A homecoming to Florida for you.
Yeah. I was only there for a short period of time, but
we can count it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I appreciate getting to talk to you so much. I've been such a fan of yours for so long. But before you go, we reached out to the folks on our Instagram page at the Lineup Pod, and got a lot of questions for you, but we've whittled it down to 3. First question is from @TreeHatJ, who asks, you sit across multiple disciplines, skate, surf, music, and film. How do you do it all?
Well, I don't know. I think
There's a little bit of like, I was going to ask it earlier, but you do seem like, and even your name, I'll be honest, is like Matt Costa feels like an Orange County kid who's like good at everything automatically. Like the good baseball player, the good surfer, the big skater. It's like, and I'm like, oh man, if that could easily have been Matt. I'm not sure if that's the case.
No. I think that I definitely liked baseball when I was young. I wasn't that good at it. And I will say I'm not a good surfer, but I've gotten out there. Skateboarding, I spent the most time doing that, as we talked about. So
Sure.
like I do that, but mostly I think it's just like, I just make time for it. I think that's the main thing. It's just allotting the time and knowing it's like once you do it, if you allot the time for it, you come back feeling good, and you get to connect with people. You get to talk some story with some people out wherever you're at, whether you get together and play some music or whether you go to the park or you go to the beach or do these different things. You always come back feeling a little bit better. And so to me, that's the thing, is pushing myself to do that. Just kind of feeds me being a better human in general. So that's kind of how I do it.
A good answer. Second question is from @2cool4 Megan, who asks, what song of yours stands out most to you and why? Seems like that would be a difficult question, but maybe not.
Oh yeah. Well, I think, I can just say a new one. There's a
Go for it.
The new ones. I feel like I'll say a new one and an old one because they. So the new one that I like the most is called "Let the Light Shine On," and I think that one really kind of captures the spirit to me of sort of the collectiveness of of humanity. Sort of there's a bit of an existential crisis in the song too, but then kind of overcoming that and knowing that like we all feel these things together. It's a really simple idea, but I think as far as songs I've written, I feel like that's captured that the best. And when I sing it, I really feel like a connection to others when I do. And as far as old songs, I'd say an old song of mine, Uh, I really like. I mean, I think you mentioned Behind the Moon.
Whoa.
That's off my first record.
That's nice of you to bring that one back for me
Yeah,
specifically. Yeah, it's a
yeah.
great
That
one.
was that was a. I always like that one because I feel like when I was speaking of kind of the collective ideas, like when I was young I was writing about you have these simple things, symbols like the moon and the sun. I wrote kind of basic stuff. I wrote a song called Sunshine and Behind the Moon, but they were things that I was looking at that we all looked at,
Mm.
and so I think that's why I also called the record Songs We Sing instead of Songs I Sing, because it was stuff that early on I wasn't even totally aware of it, but I was longing for that connection
Mm.
through art and music, and that's kind of what I've always strive for. And so I think those two songs and those ideas, kind of bring everything, bookend everything.
Great answer. Last one is from someone called at Devin Bisson Films, who asks, "How did you write the road in a broke down melody, and what was it like being a part of the film?"
Yeah. Well, I will say that I actually just recently I did a new version of it, which sounds very much like the original version because it was for my friends uh, Ben and Brian from Fielder Films. They're incredible filmmakers, and they wanted to use that song, and I was like, well, that version has it's an old version, but I was like, I can make one that I wanted to sing it today. I was like, I want to sing you one that's like me singing it today. So I changed the key a little bit and kept it pretty close. So I got to relive it a little bit, and I thought about what I was singing about, what was I singing about? And that was actually before I had before I'd done touring or anything like that. I think I was just gearing up to I knew that that was in the forecast.
Right.
And I knew that I was also going to be like kind of shedding an old life and moving forward with something new. And at the time, I didn't know what that looked like, and that was the inspiration for that song. Sometimes I think, uh, as a young songwriter, you write things really naively.
Mm.
That as now it would be really hard to sum it up that simply. Um, so yeah, that's what that song was about. And also, yeah, doing stuff with for Brokedown Melody or any of the Woodshed film stuff has always been with Jack and Emmett and Dave Holmesy, the cinematographer, people that I've like really learned a lot from and grown a lot from within things that you'd expect, and then other things you wouldn't expect too. Like those guys are all avid filmmakers and film lovers, so they were the ones who were telling me about like all some very deep cuts of like French New Wave films and stuff like that. When they're telling me to watch that, I'm like, really? That's what you're watching?
Right.
But I did, so, and
Oh,
I learned quick. So
I love it. Well,
yeah.
thanks to everyone who wrote in at the lineup pod. We are now down to our final segment. It is the lightning round. So these are 10 questions for you to answer as quickly as you can.
Okay.
Spoiler alert, some people don't answer them that quickly, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
First question. If you can have one surfboard setup for the rest of your life, single fin, twin fin, thruster, quad bonzer, or finless, which would you choose?
Oh, well, I would just have to say my friend Ulrich Yule from Spacetime Surfboards. I would take one of his boards.
Great answer.
Yeah.
Coffee or tea?
Definitely coffee.
Burrito or pizza?
Pizza.
Last book you read?
I'm reading one right now. I'm almost finished with it. Endurance. It's it's a story of like journeys down in Antarctica in
Wow.
the turn of the century, 1900, where it wasn't looking good. People were getting like gangrene, and people were losing legs, and people getting lost at sea. So it's a really uplifting. It's really
It's good.
uplifting.
But you know what? Those are good for perspective. You're like, you know what? I don't need air conditioning. This is fine.
Yeah.
Great one. Best surf film ever.
Uh, I'm gonna say, oof, man, man, there's so many good ones. Um, I'm just gonna say searching for Tom Curran.
It's a unimpeachable answer, frankly. What is one wave that you never have to go back to?
Um. Oh man. Uh. Man, I don't know. I mean, most waves will take me out, so I say I'll just I'll just stay
That's
in
fair.
there. Yeah,
That's fair. If you only get to surf one wave for the rest of your life, and you can dreamcast it, could be the exact conditions you want, just you and your friends, which wave would it be?
yeah. Oh. I mean, I would say pipe. I mean, I just like I got a bunch of friends there and stuff too, so that's where I'd be.
There you go. Best person to share a lineup with?
Um. Oh man. I I mean, I wish I was a better surfer, to answer these
It's
questions
okay.
better.
Yeah, it's all
So,
right.
um, I would say I'm gonna say Tom Curran because I've only like shared a stage with him before, and he was on roller skates, and and also too like I saw him down here on I saw him at Brooks here in Laguna. I was like walking down to the beach and he was coming back up, and I was like, hey Tom, and he looked at me like he just didn't like that he didn't remember me, and I was like, it's Matt. I was like, you were on roller skates during our set, and he's like, no, I remember. Um, and so yeah, I just think that he's gonna make this spot a couple times in my 10 questions. So
Fair enough. Worst person to share a lineup with?
oh man, no, I don't like giving worse. I don't like giving worse.
That's it. That's fine.
I'm gonna opt out of that.
All good. Last one. Finish this sentence. I will next achieve a state of happiness by.
Um, eating a slice of pizza.
I love that answer. Matt Costa, thank you so much for coming on the lineup. For everyone, check out Matt's Instagram at Matt Costa Music, and definitely check out Exploration of Sight and Sound Volume 2. First premiere is coming out November 30th at the Irivian South Coast Theater. We'll put the description in the show notes. Matt, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, my pleasure too. Thanks for having me.